This is the 2025 Hyundai Santa Fe XRT. Now, the XRT trim is meant to be the more rugged-looking, off-road friendly version of Hyundai's SUV and crossover lineup. But for the Hyundai Santa Fe XRT, is this just another marketing gimmick or just another visual appearance package, or is it actually worth your money? From a utilitarian perspective, the towing capacity has been bumped up by an extra 1,000 pounds to 4,500 pounds if your trailer has brakes. And to accomplish that, you'll notice that the front bumper on the XRT trim is slightly different. There's actually more openings on the grille, and that's to provide additional cooling to the transmission cooler. As for the ground clearance, it's very slight. You can hardly tell, but the XRT is actually 1.3 inches taller, and a small part of that additional clearance comes from the 30-inch all-terrain tires, which is physically larger in diameter. Visually, the XRT also comes with its own unique black finish wheels. The front bumper, again, is slightly different. You got these built-in handles on the C-pillars so that you could just put your hand there, put your foot on top of the tire, and then just reach for stuff on top on the roof rails. These roof rails are rated for 220 pounds, by the way, and that's when you're under motion. When you're static, I believe those are rated for a lot higher. And the XRT is actually the cheapest trim where you can get these built-in handles because the SEL doesn't come with it. And at the back, you get what I think is the best part of the Hyundai Santa Fe, and I'll talk more about that a little later. And I like how the rear wiper has been fully integrated into this rear spoiler. And you'll notice back here that you have the XRT badging as well as the H-Track because this has all-wheel drive standard. And the black badges, I think that looks really good. This new Santa Fe is a bit of an acquired taste in my opinion. It's boxier than your traditional SUV and the proportions might look odd. For example, the positioning of the rear taillights is very low compared to the rest of the vehicle. And it also has this H motif that you'll see in a lot of other places throughout the car inside and out. Overall, I really like the look of this thing. It gives you access to that Land Rover Defender 130 look without having to pay Land Rover Defender prices. This color is called rock green. It's like an olive drab color. I think it looks great and it goes well with all of the black and the dark trim on the rest of the car. Inside, the Santa Fe has a really great functional interior. There's a lot of open spaces and there's so much storage in here that it makes organizing a bit easier. First of all, I love the open center console design. They've moved the gear shifter over to the steering column just like their Ioniq line of cars, and that just opens everything up here. So if you have stuff that you want to put on top of here, it's very convenient. Now beneath this thing, there's even more storage down below. The armrest itself is also fairly deep. There's a caddy in here that you could remove, and it's also nice that the lid is reversible so that your rear passengers can access it as well. For the front passenger, not only do you get your traditional glove box, you also have a secondary glove box on the top for various things. On the higher end trims, that actually comes built in with a sanitizing feature, which is always nice to have. As for the infotainment display, this is a 12.3-inch touchscreen and it has wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. A benefit for the XRT trim is that this also comes with built-in navigation, which the SEL doesn't have. So if you're roaming around areas with no cell reception, at least you still have some built-in maps in your car. Now straight ahead, there's a digital driver display. This is a smaller unit instead of the 12.3-inch unit that you'll find in the more expensive trims. I do like the LED gauges. This configuration does make it look a bit more upscale, and I thought, along with a bunch of other people that sat in this car, that all of this was a digital screen, but really it's just the small portion here. Along the dash for the vents, this is where you see more of that H design motif, and below that line here are your stereo and HVAC controls. It's a combination of physical controls and also some touch sensitive buttons. So this XRT trim comes with heated seats and you can control it via these buttons over here, and I like how it's dual zone and you can also control the climate for the rear seats. And right below that, you have a couple of USB-C ports. This one only comes with one wireless charger on the higher end trims. Both spots are wireless chargers. And then back here, you have a couple of pretty large cup holders. As for the steering wheel, you get only physical controls, which is nice. And there's a couple of paddle shifters for your 8-speed dual clutch transmission. And for the H logo that you normally see in past Hyundai vehicles, that's been replaced by 4 dots. And that's Morse code for the letter H. As for the seats for the XRT, you get this XRT logo on the the seat. This is covered in the H-Tex material, which is synthetic leather, and it feels great, it looks nice, and it doesn't get too hot in the summertime. And then finally up top on the XRT, you get this conventional sunroof. As for the second row, I love the amount of legroom back here at 42.3 inches. There's also 39.6 inches of rear headroom. I'm 5'8", and I feel like I'm in a cave back here. Now, in traditional SUVs, you normally find some venting and USB ports back here, but for the Hyundai Santa Fe, the USB ports have been moved over to the rear of the first row chairs, and then also the venting has been moved over to the B-pillar. And one more trick over here, the center console has a rear opening. And you remember that H-design motif, you'll see more of that behind the first row, and then additional storage back here for various items. Now, as for the third row, to get back here, there's a button which will release and slide the second row seat forward. And you might want to just save this seat for the kiddos because there's not as much rear leg room back here. Not a bad amount of rear headroom at 37.7 inches. Again, I'm 5'8", but I mostly fit in most cars anyway. But in terms of the rear leg room, there's only 30 inches of room, which is okay, but just check out where my knee is compared to my hip. This is not a very comfortable position to be in for a long time. I do like the amount of amenities on the third row. You have some controls for your rear HVAC, you have venting, and you also have a traditional plug. Now, as for the cargo space, this is the best part of the Hyundai Santa Fe, in my opinion. The rear hatch is just one giant door that has been redesigned so that you get 6 inches of additional width compared to the last Santa Fe. Now, there's 14.6 cubic feet of space behind the third row, and the third row folds fully flat. You just pull on this, push forward. Same for this side. And now the space grows to 40.5 cubic feet. And then you can fold the second row down from these buttons, and the space grows to 79.6 cubic feet of space behind the first row. That's pretty massive. And since these rows fold flat, you can install a mattress back here if you want to do some car camping, which is actually what this car was marketed for. And I also like how the third row armrest with all of these features back here, this sort of acts like your nightstand if you're sleeping in your car. There's a lot of thoughtful features inside this car, and that's what I love about the Hyundai Santa Fe. They've really looked at all the use cases about how these people will use their cars and designed it for those activities. So all of those features are great, but what is it like to drive? Well, the Hyundai Santa Fe drives a lot like other unibody SUVs and crossovers. They feel comfortable and they're pretty responsive. They don't drive like most other four-wheel drive cars like Toyota 4Runners or Jeep Wranglers or Ford Broncos, which are body-on-frame SUVs. Those are fantastic on the off-road, but once you put them on-road, they can feel a little floaty and clumsy. The extra ruggedness of the XRT with the extra ground clearance and the all-terrain tires, it doesn't really affect the ride and handling quality much compared to the other trims. The all-terrain tires do cause a little bit more noise compared to the traditional street tire, but that's only something that you'll notice if you drove them side by side. After a while, you don't even pay attention to it anymore. The handling is still on par with other mid-size unibody SUVs and crossovers. Steering is light and responsive with good road feedback, and visibility is also very good with the low dash and the square body. You could really tell the edges of the car from where you're sitting. Now, when it comes to the power, the 2.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine makes 277 horsepower and 311 pound-feet of torque. It's sized appropriately for a car that can fit 7 people, so 0 to 60 in about mid-7 seconds. The 8-speed wet dual-clutch transmission shifts very quickly and it's nice to drive, but just like most other dual-clutch units, there can be some hesitation when you're going from a standstill. It's still something that throws me off every once in a while, and that's just inherent to the dual-clutch design, but it's a whole lot better than what the Hyundai 7-speed dual-clutch were like many years ago. Generally, I'm very impressed with the Hyundai Santa Fe because it looks great, in my opinion, and it has a lot of thoughtful design inside and out. And this is also a 6 or 7-seater car for about $40,000, and you get a lot for your money. I want to thank you guys so much for watching all the way up to this point. If you want to check out the Hyundai Palisade, which is a larger vehicle, check out this link over here. But I want to thank you for tuning in. My name is Hanson, and that has been the 2025 Hyundai Santa Fe XRT, and I'll see you in the next one.